Mics are working?
Yes, all good here. We are going to talk this morning about predictive modeling, about predictions, about forecasting, about prognostication. We're going to look to the future, and I predict at the end of this session, you're all going to write a 5-star review for the EduData podcast. I would really appreciate that. If you're watching on live stream, nobody's watching you. You can do it now.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. So I'm Jamie Boggs. I'm a senior engagement analyst at Element451 as my day job. The podcasting is extra fun that we get to do. I am the opening act for this presentation. Your headliner will be Timothy.
That's a bold statement. Thank you. We'll see about that. But hello, I am also an engagement analyst at Element451. Jamie and I work together on the same team, and we manage a number of data products throughout the system, including, and I'll hand it back off to you. Let's go.
Yeah, so Bolt Insights is what we're going to, just a general overview, and then we'll get into what we're going to be doing with predictive modeling moving forward. So Insights, generally, we have our reports. We focus on trends. We want your data to be available to you so that you can not only view it, but you can report it, you can share it, and so that you can use it to make future decisions.
Absolutely. So, if you've been in Element, if you're an Element user, you've seen the Insights dashboards. They're in the Data and Automations drop-down menu. You can pull those up. We also have Insights Queue. We're calling it Bolt Queue now, excuse me. And it's a toggle at the top right, and you can open it up. It's a natural chat interface, so you can ask questions of your data, the same topics that you encounter in our Insights dashboards. But today, we're actually moving into kind of a new territory, which is exciting. And so we'll have some announcements related to that. So let me set the stage there. I think it can be helpful for us to think about, you want to switch? Let's do it. We're talking it through as we go.
Didn't have to say it. We're good.
Yeah. We get to think about analytics as 3 sort of progressive stages. So that first stage being descriptive analytics. We want to understand what has happened. And that's a fairly straightforward process once you have a well-established process, once you have that data ready to go. Of course, getting the data ready to go is some of the challenge, right? Getting it clean, getting it modeled and ready for analysis. And that's what we, of course, have tried to accomplish with the Insights dashboards. But as we progress, we want to get into predictive analytics, which is making predictions based on what we know and what we have observed in the past, making predictions about what will happen in the future or giving a likeliness to that. That's a little bit more computationally expensive, of course. But what's nice about it is once you've gone through that process, you actually have kind of a deliverable, right? You have a percentage or a score that you can assign to a data object like a student record, like an email, like an application. But where we really want to go is prescriptive analytics. We want to be able to look at all of our data and ask, what should we do? And what's interesting is that's actually available right now within Element451. We call it Bolt AI Assistance. We believe that the LLM process, right, is that prescriptiveness, and you can open up Element right now. And you can open up that sidebar and talk to the Bolt AI assistant there. It's the staff assistant, formerly Copilot if you're following that name change. And you can have a robust conversation about what you can do. You can brainstorm. You can even go to a specific user record and ask, tell me about this student, and maybe suggest some things that I could do, right? So that's where we want to get. But as we know with LLMs, right, we have the problem of hallucinations or of making things up without specific information, right? The LLM pulls on its general knowledge and tries to provide you an answer anyway, right? And when you're brainstorming, that's great. Like, you want that sort of creative energy. But when you're, of course, providing like specific answers about programs, about employees or processes, whatever that may be, specific stuff, you want it to be precise all the time, right? And that's why we created the knowledge base, right? The knowledge base is your institution's information. It's up to date all the time, and we augment the response of the LLM with that context. We want to do the same thing with Insights. We want to be able to provide all of the data that you've generated with an element, all of the activities, all of the behaviors, all of the demographic information about your students to inform those responses as well. And that's what we're moving into today. Of course, we're not sure what that process is going to look like, what that end product will be, but we're taking our first crack at it, and we're calling it the Bolt Priority Index. The Priority Index is going to help you and the AI assistants determine how to spend your time, right? And we can look at contacts specifically, roll up a number of predictions about them into our priority score so you can decide how to engage with them. So we're excited to introduce this to you today, take you along with the process and show you kind of behind the scenes of how we made it and, of course, how it'll be used in Element. And with that, I'll hand it back over to you.
Yeah, so we're gonna get nerdy for a minute. We're gonna dig into the weeds of what's actually happening with the predictions we're making. Machine learning, you've heard the phrase. We've talked about AI for every session pretty much since we've been here. Machine learning basically is going over and over lots and lots of data to discover patterns and to put things together in a usable way. Machines don't get tired like we do. They don't get distracted like we do. We tell them to go learn, and they do it and follow through with it. So they're able to process so much information to get us those patterns. Our process here for what we're doing is first we want to create what are the features or the factors going into this prediction. What do we think may influence the outcome we're trying to predict? That outcome is the target. So the target may be going from suspect to prospect. It may be completing the application once you've started it. It may be enrolling once you've applied. Each of those factors is going to be measured for how much impact it has on that target outcome. So once we've established these are the factors and this is the target, that's when we hand it over to the machine learning process to where it can learn, if we're looking at enrollment, which of these factors makes the biggest impact on that enrollment decision? What does that look like for historical records? And then we can apply that to new student prospects, new students in the funnel. And we can even gain insights from what's happening within that process itself, because it will tell us the importance of those features. So we may look back and see, wow, the biggest factor to see if somebody's going to enroll is how long it takes them from the start of their application until it's submitted. That's much more important than I thought it would be. So we need to do a better job of encouraging people to wrap that up. But those are the types of factors that we're going to include in there, in addition to the actual mathematical model. Again, this is the last nerdy slide. We use a gradient boosting model. So if you see the visualization here, these are decision trees. And decision trees are great because they're analytical models that take into account combinations of factors. So we're not just looking at what did they do on your website. We're looking at their interactions here combined with maybe the state they're from, combined with what type of institution you have. And decision trees are great about preventing overfitting by looking at combinations of factors. And gradient boosting takes a ton of decision trees, uses them to learn from one another to create an ultimate model that is going to tell us this is how we're predicting things, give us more data, and then we will put that through what we've trained, and then we'll get some outcomes that we're using. So, end nerdy scene. Okay.
Somebody's got the YouTube video up. What is gradient boosting?
Yes, you'll find a lot. It's a good time.
It's a great YouTube video. It's only like 45 minutes long.
Yeah. What data is being used? So we are including some who is this data, but we don't want it to be all about demographics. We want it to be mostly about behaviors and actions. So the permanent demographics that are going to be anonymous, in-state versus out-of-state, iPads, racial identification, big, high-level identifiers for individuals that don't tell us who they are, identifiers that don't identify them at all. Behaviors and actions. How are they interacting with you on Element? How are they interacting with you in your office? How often are they coming on campus? What activities are they completing with you? And then we're factoring in what type of institution you have, because we know that the size of your institution, the type or sector, public, private, whether your institution is part of a system or not, those things matter. That way we're not measuring every student from every institution the same way. We're taking into account specifics about your school.
And I think we could kind of meditate on that for a minute. Like the behaviors and actions is really what sets the CRM apart as the engine for predictive analytics, right? We collect so much activity and behavior data about what students do when they interact with emails, when they interact with your website, when they schedule appointments, when they go to events, whether they show up or they don't, all that sort of stuff. And we can roll that up into a behavior pattern. And that behavior pattern is much more unbiased, we could say, than traditionally just using demographic info.
Absolutely, and Artis used the phrase secret sauce when he was talking about some of our products yesterday. That's what this is for us. And we would go ahead and click.
Yeah, let's go.
We could go through the whole list of what we're using, but just think about every interaction and every module and element. So are they showing up for appointments? If they're not coming to appointments, are they canceling them or not showing up? How many days has it been since they last clicked an email? What percentage rate do they have of clicking emails that they open? Each piece of behavior data can be its own feature or factor in these models. If you want to import custom activities, we can count those. We're not only looking at yes or no, did they do this? We're looking at how many times did they do this thing? What sources, how many sources led them to interact with us? Which was the first source? What was the last source? And what were the days since your last application start? Days since your last email open? Days since the last event you attended? There are so many individual actions that happen within the Element451 platform that we can take into account. So we have just a number of ways to allow the machine to really dig into what's happening and what matters. Finally, we're calling this the predictive index, or the priority index. So we're framing it in prioritization. So what we get back from our machine learning model is the probability to persist to the next stage in the enrollment funnel. So what we're going to provide is kind of a scale to allow you to prioritize. So prime could be the level of students that they're ready to go. They are so close to that next step. Let's go ahead and nudge them so that they can persist a little bit forward. You may have students off of a list that you bought that are prime candidates to become prospect. You may have students you've admitted that are prime and ready to enroll. You may also have students at every stage of the funnel that are on every level here. So warm, they're making good progress. They're not quite ready, but they're getting close. Steady, their average pace of completing what we need them to complete, of participating how we want to participate. Stalled is essentially what it sounds like. They were active, but not as active as they need to be. And then stagnants, we've kind of lost momentum there. So they're unlikely to move forward now. That doesn't mean we rule them out. But by providing you this, we're hoping that we give you the opportunity to decide, where do we want to spend our energy? Where do we want to focus? Do we want to make sure we capitalize on those prime students? Are we going to spend a lot of time and effort on those steady students to make sure that they get what they need to move forward? So this is the scale that we will provide. Think about the engagement score traits. This could be a similar way to track and to create tasks and such. And Timothy's going to talk about how to utilize this. But again, we're framing it at priority. What priority should I put on certain groups of students and how close they are to moving forward?
Right. If I gotta pick where I spend my energy, if I gotta pick where I spend my money, who am I going after? And this gets you down the road. Okay. So to sum all that up, of course, we are using machine learning for this. That is the AI sort of adjacent process. We're using a mix of demographic, academic, and behavior data, and it's evenly distributed. So those categories, right, we even them out to make sure that you always have some folks to go after. You're never going to see everybody stagnant. Oh no, right? And of course, unlike the engagement score, which is just at the single contact level, this is using all of your data across your entire instance to make a much more informed prediction. And then the other thing to highlight here is that this process and the data security component of this process is really important to us, right? Our ML models are trained locally within our ecosystem, right? They never go to third parties. They never go train somebody else's models. We're never sending data away. And we're also not using, as Jamie said, not using any personally identifiable information because we don't need it. We don't need that granularity in the demographic area because we have so much behavior data to supplement it.
Our models only get what we feed them, and we only feed them things that are necessary to have. So we try to make sure that we're limiting it, but giving it enough to make the most accurate predictions possible.
Absolutely. So if you've used the engagement score before, you know it's a trait on the contact record. If you're on the contact record, you go down to that more data on the sidebar, and then you open that up as a side panel. You got everything there. There's a traits menu there, and those are all the calculations we make about the student. So the trait, we have a lot of traits. Some of them are really simple, like, what was their first source? When were they last seen? What zip code were they last seen at? What device were they last using? How many days since they've logged in? Stuff like that. Calculations based on their activities. The engagement score looks at all of that and scores them to see how engaged they are. And then of course now this predictive index will live alongside that and help you make priorities based on their engagement against the rest of your data. So because it's a trait, it will appear in segment filters. You can build segments off of these folks, and then with those segments, that kind of trickles through the platform as we go through tasks, through campaign versions. And then finally, as we kind of alluded to at the start, that trait will also inform AI assistant responses. So the AI assistant, when it gets the context of a particular student record, you go to a student record and you say, hey, what do I do with this student? What's the nudge they need? What's an effective message I could send them? How likely are they to be responsive, right? The response from the assistant will be informed by that predictive index. Okay, let's have a look at the segment here just to take a peek at what it'll look like in the interface. So here we go. It's a trait, right? So you'll be able to search that in the segment filter menu. You'll be able to pull from that, and you'll be able to say, give me my prime ones, or give me my stagnant ones, give me my steady ones, whoever that's going to be. This could be potentially really useful for territories. A lot of folks are evaluating how they do territories, and so if you have a team that's going to go potentially after maybe one demographic area, but also after a specific cohort of students as the priority index assigns them, right? That could be your high intensity team that's making phone calls, or that's doing like high touch activities, stuff like that. This could also be potentially used for like qualifying leads. Right, if you get leads in maybe from digital marketing and you send them some drip campaigns, and if they're not responding to that, they're going to be stagnant, right? So then you can kind of filter them out. You're saying we're not going to call those folks. But if they trickle up, if they start opening those emails, if they start engaging a little bit more, that's a qualified lead. Now we start calling them. Now we start sending more high touch engagements their way. And then finally, this could be a really powerful workflow condition. If you've got maybe a really long drip campaign and you're seeing that predictive index either not improve or even go down, right? That could be a workflow condition that then kicks them out so that you're not sending as many emails. You're not increasing your email traffic, and you're hopefully keeping your open rates, your click-through rates a little higher, stuff like that, which is also really important, of course, for your domain authority. The other way this can be used, and there was actually a really good conversation that happened in the Circle community, in Elements community. If you're not part of that, definitely reach out through CS and get part of our Element community and ask your questions there. It's a great community, really responsive. There's a question about we want to be able to like filter down by territory. We want to be able to filter our tasks down by these other metrics that are important to us. And when you're on the tasks homepage, there's that filter, there's all your tasks, and then there's that filter. It's like all the task properties, right? But okay, I want to know what territories, I want to know what labels, or in this case, I want to know by priority index. I want to be able to filter in those tasks. So if you've got your high touch team that's making a lot of phone calls or doing high touch engagements, right? You could create a task queue for them based on that segment you've created for them, so that those tasks are surfaced for them. Right, and they can go through those with priority. Okay, another powerful way this could be used, campaign versions. If you haven't used campaign versions before, as you're building a one-time or an ongoing communication in the campaigns module, you can create multiple versions. A common use case here is by degree plan, right? So if you send out a general kind of drip campaign, but like what degree they're interested in or what major they're interested in, you can give them a custom version of that email with the major information. Okay, you could also use that for this priority index, and it could be used like for CTA testing, right? If you've got your kind of middle audience there, you think, okay, these folks maybe really need appointments, right? I don't want to push them to an event. There might be a no-show there. I don't want to just send them a drip campaign or have them go to the forum or push them to apply, whatever that is. Let's push them to schedule an event, do a test that way. So that could be a powerful campaign variation.
And even just in the language you're using, if you want to send the same message in the same CTA, but you want to say, you're so close, we would love to engage you in this way, or, hey, we haven't heard from you in a while, then that's more personable. They recognize that you recognize where they are and how they've been interacting. So the subtle messaging here, I think, can make a big difference too.
I didn't think of this but as I'm seeing the campaign versions too, we also have AI blocks within emails that will generate the content that you prompt for at the time the email is generated and sent to the student. And this context of their trait could also be informative for that response. Okay, last one to look at, of course, is the assistant context. So when you're talking to when you're in a staff assistant conversation within Element451, you ask about a student, you get recommendations on what to do, right? This trait will now also inform those conversations. So it could look at other traits. It could look at, their intended major, their intended term, all that stuff, inform that response. But now this trait will do the same thing. And that is version 1 here of our Bolt Priority Index. Hope this is interesting to you guys. Hopefully it's really helpful. Of course, we'd really love your feedback on this and what other predictive or kind of holistic data picture traits that we can surface for you, other data products that we can surface for you. So with that, I think we can go into some questions. If anybody's got some. Got one back here. Oh, and up here too. Okay. I'll let you pick up, Brendan.
Thank you. My question is, are you able to take these models and use them in the new student module? Is that what it's called? Student portal.
The portal. Yeah.
To analyze people who are going through the education process and locating those stagnant students for us and recommending engagement with those particular people?
I'm thinking of a few ways. Do you got one off the dome? Okay, I was gonna take a break from talking so much. Another way this could be used is we talked about building segments. Right now, because Portals hasn't been launched, we don't have a lot of data around that yet. We don't have dashboards for that yet. But the solution that I have off the top of my head, as I'm hearing your question, is in like the funnel dashboard, in the sources dashboard, in any of these other any of the insights dashboards, you can use calculated segments as filters for the entire dashboard. So if you have a segment of your Bolt Predictive Index of steady or of prime, you can use that calculated segment to filter down your dashboards. So yes, that could be a way that you surface folks that are getting stuck at different funnel stages. That could be a way that you surface, time between stages, right? So saying like this, prime folks tend to move through the application process faster, or steady folks tend to get stuck at the prospect stage. They never apply, stuff like that. So yeah, there's a lot of ways you could slice that on the Insights dashboard using those calculated segments.
And we see this as a really important feature, something that could be really actionable and helpful. So with new things we develop, we're going to find ways to make sure it's incorporated and utilized as we release new features.
Can you talk about, oh, sorry, or is it me? Can you talk about how surveys can be incorporated into this, using a survey feature with an element?
Yeah, so surveys are just another engagement type, right? They're in the same way that forms and that page views and that all the other modules that generate engagement data are used to inform the various traits that we calculate, including this predictive index. Yeah, that's all included in that behavioral data that we collect about each contact.
And it's more about their interaction with the survey. Are they ignoring it? Are they completing it? How long is it taking to complete it? So we're looking at the actual behavior, in some ways the content, depending on what you're asking. But yeah, that's certainly a piece of it.
Hey, first, thanks. This looks awesome. Secondly, my question is, amongst the 5 stages, you said it's always going to be evenly distributed.
Yeah.
Doesn't that make it kind of a moving target, like grading on a curve in a class? Over time, someone who might be considered warm, same person, same thing at a different time would be steady or prime or something else? Yeah,
so they will be recalculated. So as they progress more, right, their priority index could shift up, could shift down. The idea behind evenly distributing is we don't want you to just like on day one, say you just implemented, you've got like 15 contact records in the system. We don't want all to be stagnant, or you're importing your historic contacts, stuff like that. We don't want all to be stagnant, so you have the basically rendering the trait mute for your engagement or segmenting purposes. So that's the idea behind that.
And the scores can be different. The raw scores could vary by institution, so we don't want to set a bar of the probability here is this label for everyone. We want it to be institution specific. So by doing those percentile rankings is how we're distributing it. If you're in the top percentile of 85 to 100th percentile, you're in the prime category. So by doing that, we're distributing it more accurately at the institutional level, but again, at the actionable level, because even if their scores may be lower than some other institutions, then they're still your prime students. For you, they're the closest you have to moving forward.
And that kind of reflects our design philosophy across the whole system, right? We want to abstract away complexity and give you something that's immediately actionable. So that's the idea behind that. We'll see how that goes and make sure that we're meeting that goal, right? Did that answer your question? Great. Thank you. Anybody else? We got one over here.
Hi,
Hey.
and there's two over here on this side,
Okay,
by the way.
awesome. I'll keep looking this way.
From your description, I think I know the answer to my question, but I just want to check. With your bulk priority index tool, is there any way to ingest outside data in there and join it up with the data that's in Element451? And can you engineer your own features in your system?
At this point, feature engineering is not supported. We're doing that just kind of across the board so that we can do it at scale, right? We want to be able to deliver this immediately at scale. Introducing feature importance or introducing the ability to select what features are important to your institution would be awesome. We'll get there, I hope. But right now, we want to deliver something immediately at scale that's useful. But yes, those custom activities are absolutely part of the system.
Yes. Any activities that you are able to import or bring into the system will be part of the calculation.
Just to follow up on that,
Sure.
Can we determine our own targets, or have you set the target as?
The target is those funnel stages, right? And those funnel stages, again, are using milestones. So milestones are automatically generated as students progress through different key actions. So when they start an application, they get the application start milestone. They submit it, get the application submit. If you've got a prospect form, they submit that, they get the date of inquiry milestone. That milestone is how we track funnel progression, how we calculate funnel progression by date, right? And then how we also do it by multiple funnels. So yeah, we're looking at those. You want to talk more about that?
Yeah, as most of you all know, with Element451, we release features all the time, and we're looking for feedback and improvements. So if we get a ton of feedback that says, hey, we want this to be an additional target that we're looking at, then we'll look at including that in our models and in the scores. So open to progressing and improving it to better meet everybody's needs, because that's what we're hoping to do.
Thank you. We had another one back there.
Will the priority score be available as a column in the people view?
Can you say that one more time?
Will the priority score be available as a column in the people view?
I don't see why not. Yeah, because it's a direct attribute of the contact record. So yeah, when you're in the people index page, you got your list of folks. You can add more columns, right? You might not be able to see like application major in there because you can have multiple applications. We can't just render out one. We'd have to pick. So you could do like first. But yeah, because that's a trait, it's again, as I said, a direct attribute of that contact record. So yeah, we could absolutely add it as a column. One more over there.
As an institution that is just launching Element, how much behavioral data does this predictive model necessitate for it to be used properly in segments and in campaigns?
Did you plant her in the audience?
Yeah.
That's a great question.
Thank you. You did great. $5 coming your way.
That's the beauty of this, is that we use aggregate element data to train this. So there is no cold open problem. We have student activity data that we're already using to train models. So once your students get started, as soon as they start completing activities, they're going to have a score, because we're using our aggregate data to train it. It's not just training on your institutional data. It is taking into consideration your institutional factors, because that's a part of the puzzle. But yeah, you're going to be ready to go as soon as you get contacts in there and you have activities happening.
Any other questions? I'm seeing we've got 1 minute and 9 seconds, 8 now. So get it in quick. Oh my, you were just right there.
He teleported. Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much.